and then I can generate a bass, and drum track that'll perfectly fit that, and then put my guitar in there, and everybody thinks I'm a genius. No, my wife just said not everybody.
Today's conversation is really special for me, thinking back to a lot of formative years of listening to music and learning how to play and just trying to soak up everything that I was listening to around me. The guy I'm chatting with is very instrumental in that happening, in that we hung out together a lot. He turned me on to a lot of music that I still listen to, and we started playing music together and started recording some at both of our houses, and have had the chance to play a lot over the years, and I just think the world of him, and just really excited to get to chat and relive some of those memories and just kind of hear his story of what all he was listening to and what his musical journey's been. So it's a pleasure to have my pal, Mr. Tim Sweatman, on the podcast. Hey, Tim, how are you?
Good to be here.
Man.
That introduction is going to be hard to live up to.
Well, it's all true. I promise you'll live up to it. So
you mentioned we were, soaking up music. We soaked up a lot of it.
We really did. And it was all over the map.
Oh man, yeah. I always say George Jones in the morning, maybe George Clinton in the afternoon. You never know.
you never. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Adam Ant to ZZ Top.
Yeah, that's it. We were both, I think, just very kindred spirits about what we were listening to, and just everything under the sun, from rock to jazz to country to classical to everything in between. And we were listening to it, talking about it, and then started playing and singing together. And it was a really important time for me. And I look back on that and know that it kind of set me on a path that I feel like I'm still on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can remember back the first time that we've known each other since you were probably 4.
Yeah,
maybe. And I don't know. Our folks are somewhat related, and
yeah, that's right.
And have known each other even longer than that. Got my coffee here.
Excellent.
And but I remember the first time I'd seen you in a while. We were at a family reunion, and I won't say how much older I am than you, but I am a bit, but not that much. And I just remember we were talking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody else that's kind of my age. And this is, I don't know, I guess it was in the maybe early 90s probably, I guess.
I think it was probably the early 90s, yeah.
And I'm like, there's somebody else my age who likes James Taylor. Can't believe that.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I remember that, and because I remember thinking, okay, I think this is the beginning of something that's going to be a lot of fun to just hang out and pick each other's brain about music and everything that goes along with that, whether it's an instrumentalist or a singer or a songwriter or the production part of it. I mean, we were chatting about all of that.
Yep, learning it all. So
I
know we both. I thought, man, there's somebody else out there that does it. That can't wait to get a new, I guess it's probably CD that was the medium mostly then, and tear open the cover and read who all played on it.
Yeah. I miss those days of reading liner notes and knowing the cross-pollination of all of the different studio musicians or even band members that wound up playing. I just think back to like you and I are both big Crosby, Stills, and Nash fans, and there were so many players that were playing on each other's records back then. Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. And I remember getting the Crosby, Stills, and Nash box set, and sometimes young, and it had a family tree in there of all the bands that were related to Crosby, Stills, and Nash, going back to the Byrds and the Hollies and Buffalo Springfield, and how Poco fit in there, and just all these different. And I was just intrigued by that. I didn't know all that stuff then. I wasn't around obviously in the '60s.
Yeah,
obviously.
Although some may believe that we are. My children like to give me a hard time about what was it like when you had to write music on cave walls. That's what they say to me. So I'd like to go back and just kind of find out where all of this started for you. I mean, I know you come from a very musical family.
Yep.
Singers and instrumentalists but what was your first instrument, and kind of how did that what sparked that for you?
I think it was another interest we had together. I started on drums, and that was just a love from the beginning. I can't remember. I know I can remember being 4 years old, with some wooden spoons, beating the heck out of the couch. So I guess that was my first kit, right?
I was the same way.
And
anything.
And I think it was probably around 6 when I got a little, like a toy set from Sears for Christmas, and that lasted about a day before I busted the heads on those. And then my dad, my cousin had bought a set of drums, and he was got interested or whatever, and got disinterested pretty quick. So my dad bought those drums from him, and that was the first real kit, which was still a Sears kit, 'cause that's
right.
But I think it was like a made by Pearl, so it was decent. It wasn't great, but decent, real shells and things like that. And I played those, till I outgrew those and got some better, and then some better. Ended up actually the last kit I bought was a Remo, back when they were kind of popular in the early '90s, and I still have it because I like it.
I remember those drums.
Good sounding kit, yeah.
Yeah, I remember those sounding really good. I remember you having a really great sounding snare drum too, that I think went along with that kit.
Yeah, those lugs got I cranked it so tight they got busted. So that's no more, unfortunately. I did dive into several years ago, probably getting close to 20 years ago, getting some killer shells, and so I got a shell and finished out a snare drum that I use. It's like a maple 6.5 inch. I like it a lot.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I have a pretty good little collection of snare drums. A lot of them have made their way to LSU with Skylar, but there are some still at the house that I'll use from time to time.
So I've not heard him play. Is he better than you?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Yeah,
That's a tough question.
Well, it's really interesting in that he and I have had the chance to play together a lot of the years. Me as a bass player and him as a drummer, and without even talking about it, our feel is very, very similar.
Yeah.
And it just just locked in and happened like right out of the gate, which was really cool.
Don't even have to communicate; it just happens.
Yeah.
That's good.
So yeah, he's very good, and he's a really good classical player. We just went down for his senior recital a few weeks ago, and he played about an hour's worth of material on just a variety of instruments and solo, and then a few, like a trio, and then a quartet thing, and playing 4-mallet marimba, the whole deal.
Oh, yeah, nice.
And but as we're recording this, I was just telling you, he's about to be moving to Austin, Texas in a few weeks, and hoping to supplement his income with maybe trying to gig a little bit there, because he has been playing in bands in Baton Rouge. So,
and a variety of music there.
It will be no shortage of opportunities to play, I'm guessing, so that would be really
That's
cool
a
for
great
him.
place to be.
Yeah, it's really good.
And it's not so commercialized like Nashville.
Yeah.
Or LA.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to compete with a bunch of like bachelorette parties coming down the street while you're playing. That's what I hear, that like that's the whole thing now.
Oh, Nashville, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
I keep, I hear all the, we're going to, it's always the younger women, we're going to party in Nashville. I see it on Facebook and stuff. I'm like, what's there? I mean, Night Court was, I think we talked about that before, but Night Court used to be the only entertainment.
That was the only entertainment in town. That's what we all used to do. We would all just go, and I was just telling my family about that the other day, about me and all my buddies going to Night Court. And they were like, what? I'm like, yeah. It's like going and watching reality TV in person. It is amazing.
Oh, man, there's some of the people that come in there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is.
So when you started playing drums, who were some of the drummers that you were gravitating toward? Who were you listening to?
Early on, I just, I didn't know who they were. I would hear people on the radio, and obviously my dad was into Southern gospel music, so it was a lot of that. And then, of course, country music was always playing on in the background somewhere around in the car or the house. Never, my parents never listened to any kind of rock or anything, so I picked that up on my own. But certainly the country stuff, and later on I found out some names, but. Like so, Larry London was a big Nashville player, and gosh, I'm trying to have to think back now and see who, and try to remember the names. I'm getting old, so it's hard to try to remember. Gene Chrisman was one who did a lot of stuff and actually played on some of the records in the group that you and I both were in.
Yeah.
Liberty, and that was early on. And so a lot of the stuff that we did early in Nashville, he was the session drummer for that, and great guy. I don't know if you ever got to meet him or not, but
I didn't get to meet him.
Great guy. And just incredible drummer. His, you can look up his catalog. The stuff he played on was amazing. So those were probably some of the first few people that I realized, and of course, other folks that knew more than me that were around playing in other groups at the time. I was like a little sponge on the side of the stage, just soaking up everything I could. From anybody who I thought was better than me. I always try to do that.
That's it.
There you go. There's your big tip of the day, kiddos. If you're any young folks listening out there, always try to play with somebody who's, if you can get them, if you can, try to play with somebody who's slightly better than you, because you'll get better.
That's it. Yeah.
Or a lot better than you if you can, but it's harder to get that.
If you're it's kind of like that. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. It's like if you're the best person in the band you're in, go try to get in a different band.
Yep, get in a better band.
Yeah, that's it. It's amazing. You mentioned that name. I think there was this really great group of Nashville session players in that 80s, early 90s period of him and Jerry Croon.
Jerry Croon, another one. Yeah, I was just thinking that. I was thinking that name when you called it out.
I'm trying to. Of course, Eddie Bears, Paul Lime. Yep. Just great players.
I'll tell you a little story about Croon real quick that I thought was funny. My brother, who passed away a few years ago at a way too young, early age, but he did a solo record that he never, and unfortunately never finished. But Croon played on that, and I think he got Croon to do a couple of things for him because he really liked him, and so I won't call any other names, but I think the guitar player or the bass player, somebody was yelling that they couldn't hear the click. I need more click. I can't hear the click. I can't hear the click. And Dustin, that was my brother. He he said, Croon gets over one of the mics on the drums. He's like, "I'm the click. I'm the click. Listen to me." That's pretty good. I was like, yeah, he's the click.
I'm the
He's
click.
probably more accurate than the click.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, listen, I've been doing this for a little while. I'm pretty sure I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's really funny. He, great player.
Oh yeah.
And played on a lot of that, from the country stuff to the Southern gospel stuff, and because there's so much of that in Nashville too. You think about the country music stuff that's coming out of that town, but there's a whole bunch of Southern gospel stuff that's being recorded there, and
a lot.
Yeah.
And it's the same players.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, and we'll talk about that. But you're a very talented multi-instrumentalist that plays guitar and keyboard. So, I could ask you this same question about guitar players, and then you have the Kelly Backs of the world, and all these piano players.
He just did a thing for Dad a few months ago, actually.
Oh, really?
Yep. Yeah, Kelly was in that, and sorry. I'm trying to think of his name right now. I can't, but he's the touring drummer for Reba McEntire, actually. He played drums on that.
Oh, really?
Yep. He's solid. I'd never met him before. He's really good. Very, very good. And gosh, I'm trying to remember who all was in that now. Oh, getting too old, man. Getting too old.
What's the name of that? I know there was a producer in Nashville that did a lot of. Was it Eddie Crook? Was that his name?
Yeah, Eddie was actually doing that session. And,
so Eddie's still doing it?
Oh yeah, yeah. Dad still gets him to do all his tracks and stuff. And but Eddie, and he played piano on that. That guy's still great.
Wow, that's
awesome.
Great.
Yeah, so he'll get Eddie to do the music tracks with all those Nashville guys, and then we do vocals at my house.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that way he can take his time with it.
Yeah, I think about those session players, and then you can move out. You can look out west. You can look out to L.A., and then there's this whole other batch of this massive group.
Yeah, and then a lot of them migrated to Nashville back in the 90s.
Well, Paul Lime is one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he was just he was a player out in
Dave Hungate.
LA. Yeah.
He was literally, I mean, played on Toto 4, Rosanna, Africa, and all that. And gosh, it was probably 2 or 3 years he was out in Nashville, playing on Henson Records.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty good to go from one extreme to the other like that.
Yeah.
Talented player to do that.
What a player. Yeah.
Yeah.
He toured for a while with Vince Gill. I don't think he's doing that anymore.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
He's tight.
Great player. Well, and then, of course, if we want to talk about Toto and we want to talk about those LA players, of course, Jeff Porcaro.
Oh, yeah, that was a big influence. I just read a clip, or just a meme, whatever it was, and it was David Paich that was the keyboard player, and he actually, I think he wrote Rosanna. I think he was dating Rosanna Arquette at the time. I think she's had more than one song written about her.
Yeah, but, I think she has.
At any rate, he had made the comment that Jeff Porcaro was always, when they were out on tour as Toto, he was always planning clinics for them at the different cities. And he's like, he loved to connect with young drummers and just offer what he could. And David Paich was talking about how, that's just a rarity in the business. But, that's something that he loved to do.
Really?
Yeah, I thought that was
it is rare. I mean, it's good to know that he wanted to give his wisdom back.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
not be territorial about it. And
right. Well, he didn't have to be.
Yeah. Right.
He didn't have to be territorial.
No.
And
No.
that is another thing that was David Paich saying, is that it was good for those younger drummers to sit and listen and get that wisdom from arguably one of the best drummers in history. I mean, I think that's a true statement.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's a true statement. And we listen to a lot of yacht rock radio in the car.
Yeah, we do too.
On Sirius XM. And it's, we're listening to it, and in my head, I'm like, oh, there's Porcaro on that track.
Yeah.
There's Porcaro on that track.
If they play 5 tracks, he's probably on 4 of them, or
Yeah.
maybe all 5.
Yeah, it's him.
Probably all
It's
5, because every other track seems to be Boz Scaggs.
Boz Scaggs. It's Boz Scaggs, Toto, or Michael McDonald.
Mm-hmm.
That's the rotation.
He was on all that, or Steely Dan.
Or Steely Dan.
A lot of
That's
Steely Dan
exactly
stuff.
right. My guy, I think for me, the intersection of all the drummers. I mean, it's hard to qualify or quantify or whatever you want to call it, who would be your favorite or who would be your biggest influence. But I think for me, the guy that checks all the boxes was Carlos Vega.
Oh, yeah.
He had that LA sound, but he was playing records in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
He just played everything, and the stuff he did with James Taylor.
Some of my favorite.
And look, I love Gad. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I love him, but there was this thing about the way Carlos played with James Taylor. It just connected so well with the way it locked in with his guitar, and it just served the song.
Yeah, he's very musical with his playing,
Yeah.
and I think that was the key, is how well that locked in with James's playing.
Yeah.
He approached it more like he would an acoustic guitar.
Yeah, exactly.
His brushwork was phenomenal.
It was phenomenal.
So dynamic.
Yeah, I agree. Did guitar or did piano or keyboard come first? Which when?
Keyboard.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually took piano lessons for a little while.
Okay. I didn't realize who were you studying with?
Linda Autry.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, about a year, and God bless her, she couldn't do much with me. Having an ear is a blessing and a curse, because it makes you lazy when it comes to trying to read the music. And I finally just gave up on it. So I'm not I can go through, I know what notes are. I still have to kind of look at it and go F A C E, oh yes, an E,
Right.
every good B, that kind of thing. But when it was frustrating for me especially if I knew a song, to play what was on the page as opposed to what was in my head.
No, I get it. Yeah. I was just reading something about that someone, there's that idea of like, do you know how to read music? And the answer is like, yes, but not enough to mess up my playing.
Right, yeah, exactly. That's good. I like that.
And finding that balance of knowing how to play what's on the page or not let it dictate everything you do. I mean,
Yeah, it's difficult.
It's difficult.
And some people who only read, it's like if they're reading the script for a comedy sitcom,
Yeah.
and they read it, but they're not putting the funny in it.
Yeah.
it's just it's just reading.
It's just reading.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Gotta
Yeah.
put the feel in there.
Yeah. No, I agree. And then you started playing guitar after that, and
Yeah, around probably 12, 13, I started picking up
Just a-
guitar, and
great guitar player.
oh, thanks, I appreciate being too kind now.
I just, and it was, again, just like with the drums, you were pulling from a lot. I think you were pulling from a lot of
Oh yeah,
influences.
yeah, a lot. Yeah, James Taylor was the whole reason I picked up a guitar ever. I mean, that was and it was hard to play James Taylor on a Epiphone Riviera, which is the equivalent of a 335 for all of you Gibson players, and with no amp.
Right.
That was basically how I started, and but yeah, I learned the chords and stuff out of my dad had a Chet Atkins book, so I learned the chords and things out of there, and then the rest of that was just by ear, trying to pick out what James was doing. And got some of it right, got some of it wrong. Found out that some of it was wrong years later, and got it right. And it's still a struggling learning experience.
Yeah.
I was never one of those people that would play anything exactly like something. And I would run into musicians a lot of times. Oh, you're not doing that exactly right. And I'm like, well, I didn't mean to. I'm not. I'm putting my own spin on it. I don't want to just completely copy whoever it was. But I think that trying to force myself on a hollow body, semi hollow body electric to do some acoustic stuff made it easier when I did get an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
probably like swinging two bats in the on deck circle.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like
definitely was. Except for the acoustic was a lot harder to push down, so it's almost like I had to reform calluses.
Yeah, no, that's true. I don't think, and I think the people that know, they know, but James Taylor does not get enough credit for his guitar playing
No,
by
I don't think so.
the music world as a whole, and his tone, his touch. I mean, it's remarkable how well he plays.
Yeah, and the tone was just it's his fingers. You could put that guitar in anybody's hands, and it wouldn't sound like his.
Yeah,
So,
it's unbelievable, and to hear him live or recorded, the way his guitar sounds almost identical from a recording to a live performance,
absolutely.
shows you just how much his sound is in his hands.
Yeah, and incredible live. Got to see him several times live, and it just doesn't disappoint.
No,
and
he doesn't.
And you go to see James Taylor because you don't know who's going to pop up in the band at any given time, so it's always a treat. I've seen him with Carlos Vega. I've seen him with Gad. I've seen him with Russ Kunkel. So that was just great. There's another one right there. Drummer Russ Kunkel, man. Wow. He played probably on 2 or 3 of my, Desert Island records. I mean, just my favorite ones. Jackson Browne Running on Empty. I mean, man, love that album. That's just, that whole album's just so good.
Yeah.
And, let's go ahead and throw out, Lee Sklar.
Let's throw out Lee Sklar.
Throw that name out. Really, James Taylor's whole original backing band.
Original backing band. Danny Korchmar, Russ Kunkel.
There's an underrated player.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't hear enough about him on the greatest guitar players lists.
I agree. They just just released a new documentary. I haven't had a chance to see it yet, but it's basically like it's like the second phase of the Wrecking Crew, and I think it's called Extended Family, maybe, but it's about all those guys. It's about
they did
Kunkel,
a lot of records.
Lee Sklar.
Yeah.
And you're talking about Running on Empty, talking about Tapestry. They played on that record.
Yep.
They played on all that James Taylor stuff after he recorded the album for Apple, and then came over and did I think Sweet Baby James. I mean,
so you've heard the Apple recordings, I assume.
I have.
That's a whole different ball game.
It's like, wow. Okay, so it's like singer-songwriter with a harpsichord. Okay, cool.
I understand why he didn't stay there.
Yeah, I do too.
It wasn't his sound.
I'm grateful that his meeting with Peter Asher and all of that and meeting those guys led to him getting more discovered. But yeah. He needed to be in LA to record those records.
Some of the songs that were, like Country Road and some of those original versions of that. Like, man, it's night and day.
It is night and day.
The LA version is so much better.
Yeah, it's a completely different thing.
Yep.
And as far as guitar players out there, I mean, you and I have talked about Dan Huff,
Yep.
Michael Landau.
Those two right there, as far as I'm concerned, define the sound of the '80s. It was just there's so many records and their tone, and you could, their tone was similar, but you could still pick them apart. Who was who.
Yeah.
It's like a fingerprint.
And
they both played on a lot of records I like.
A lot of records.
Yeah.
And I have to confess that I knew a lot of stuff that Dan Huff had played on, but I didn't realize the big. I mean, of course you have Lukather too, right? I mean, obviously Lukather played on a lot of those things, but Landau played on a lot of important tunes over the years.
Yeah. And I believe I read a story where Landau really got his start taking stuff that Steve Lukather was overbooked to do and couldn't do. He tossed it to Landau.
Wow.
And so then he becomes big name.
Wow.
It's pretty good when you get somebody like Lukather to give you their calls, right?
Yeah. I'll take his scraps. That's fine. I don't know if you've seen them. You may have there's some great, someone had just like set up a video camera. This was probably in maybe the early 90s, maybe even the late 80s. Some recordings at the Baked Potato, and it's David Garfield on keyboards, Abe Laboriel Sr., Landau, and Vinnie Colaiuta playing, and it is just some of the most mind-blowing stuff I've ever heard in my life.
I haven't heard that. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I'll find that and send it your way.
Absolutely.
It to me, it may be some of the best stuff Vinny's ever played, and it's just him like sitting down at the kit and just playing all this wacky stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love to hear really good musicians just jam.
Just jam.
They don't get that. I saw a clip the other day, and it was Lukather talking about playing on Human Nature, I believe. He said Quincy Jones brought him in and said this song's too pop. It's too pop. We need something in there. We need something to make it a little more rock. So he said, he started reeling. He come in with that strat little rhythm thing, that he does on there. And he's like, I gave it that. And Quincy's like, that's it. And so he goes on to talk about Luke goes on to talk about, he's like, this is why I get jobs. He's like, it's not, I'm not out here doing all this, fingerboard tapping and stuff. It's just this real tasteful stuff that fits the song. And, he's like, you want to work, learn to do that.
That's it.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That's that old saying, there's no money above the fifth fret,
right. Exactly. I heard a guy, we'll jump over into the, bluegrass folky stuff now, but, oh gosh, and I'm gonna have to try to recall his name. Oh Lord, I'm getting so old. So he played with Johnny Cash back in the day. It's an acoustic player, could play anything. He's like multi talented. Wrote a lot of bluegrass songs, and oh man, it's a great story if I can remember the guy's name. It's that bad.
I'll get my fact checkers on this too.
Get them all over it. But anyways, somebody said that they went to one of these bluegrass clinics, weekend long camp thing, and he comes in. And he's like, okay, all weekend long you've learned how to pick all this fast bluegrass stuff. He's like, I'm going to teach you how to pick slow. So,
yeah. The stuff that's normally not covered. And look, and I will say, I'm going to sound like an old fart when I say this, but you go on social media or YouTube now, it's just a collection of younger players just playing as many notes as they can to get clicks on their content.
No doubt.
And I feel like lyrical playing is just kind of an afterthought in that world. It is, now.
And I mean, it's just in music in general. I mean, I don't know. I haven't listened to pop music, and by that I mean popular music, but I just don't, because to me there's no melody there. So the melody's just gone, and I don't know why. I don't know why anybody thinks that it's appealing not to have. I miss hooks. I miss those little musical hooks there that used to be in songs. I can't get no satisfaction. I mean, you don't get stuff like that.
No.
There's no hook.
No, I mean, Lennon and McCartney could tell you a whole story with a crazy melody and a great chord structure in 2.5 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. And it was written by 2 people instead of 10 people.
Right.
Yeah, it's
and produced by 5.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. What was, when you were coming up listening to all of this stuff, what was it like for you at like school? Because for me, I was the kid that listen to stuff that no one knew what
Nobody
I was
listened to.
listening to.
Yeah, I wouldn't hip cool kid for sure. Listening to rap and stuff. That was emerging, and you had Beastie Boys and Two Live Crew. And I'm just trying to think of some names. And everybody, every car back then had the whole back seat basically taken out to put subs in, and you cruise down the strip in good old Cumming, Georgia on
In Tri-County Plaza.
Friday night in Tri-County Plaza, right? And all you heard was boom, boom. That wasn't playing in my car. I had James Taylor and could barely hear it because all that stuff was so loud. But I might have James Taylor, Jackson Browne, or the Eagles, or any number of people that nobody else had heard of. Just I was probably born in the wrong decade. I always say. As far as my musical taste, but yeah, I was listening to Chicago, which was kind of popular then. They had the Year of the Inspiration Chicago and the
David Foster Chicago.
Yeah, all the David Foster Chicago and that. But the Chicago I was listening to was Chicago 1, Chicago 2, the CTA album, or Chicago 2, or the stuff that was. I know we both love prog music, and it's not a far stretch from that early Chicago to.
Agree.
King Crimson or Genesis or Yes or any of that stuff. It's not a far stretch.
I mean, we could sit here and talk the whole time today about Terry Kath and what he did to define
way underrated player.
Way underrated guitar player. He doesn't get mentioned enough in the guitar player category. I mean,
no, not at all.
What did Jimi Hendrix say about Terry Kath?
Well, the story I heard was I think Chicago opened for Hendrix, and somebody asked him what he thought about the band, and he's like, all I know is there's an incredibly tight horn section and a guitar player better than me. So, pretty good compliment.
That's a pretty good compliment coming from Hendrix. Yeah.
And I'll throw one out there for you. Christopher Cross. All right. Ride Like the Wind. There is a guitar solo that's kind of buried in the mix at the end of that song, but it's him playing, and a lot of people don't even know that. And man, it is so Terry Kath-esque, if that's a word. I mean, it's incredible, and he doesn't get enough credit, for the. I mean, he's got. I guess he's known for the easy listening stuff in the '70s, but he could rock some of that AOR. It was. I like some of them. I'm getting a phone call with that. That's my dad. I get him on here.
Oh, is it?
Then you'll talk for 3 hours.
Tell him I said hello.
I will.
Yeah, I agree. Christopher Cross does not get enough credit for all of it. The songwriting.
Yeah, even like Sailing. I mean, I guess that's sort of a, AOR radio. I don't know what you call it. I mean, people. I don't think people really appreciate the beauty in that song and the chords, and it's kind of almost like an AOR. I can't even say it. AOR joke to some people, because it's all so overplayed. But it's just a fascinating song.
It's a fascinating song, and there's a lot of, and I'll use his music to talk about a lot of things that there's a lot of great things going on with him in terms of, he basically had Toto playing on those records.
Yep.
Of course, he had Michael McDonald singing with him, which doesn't stink. And then it was all being produced by Michael O'Mardian, who,
that guy was incredible.
What a piano player he's the piano player on Asia.
Yeah.
I mean, so he brought his whole thing, his orchestration ear and talent to those tunes, and it was amazing. When I was a student in college, my first year I was actually there at the same time that Christopher Cross's son and Michael O'Mardian's son were there.
Oh, nice.
And Christopher came and did a master class one night, and we all went and listened to it, and it was like a songwriter event, and he was telling a story about when he recorded Arthur's theme.
Yeah.
And he was saying that they tried and tried and tried to get the track, and it just wouldn't sit in the mix. Just the feel wasn't right. And Jeff Porcaro was like, let's go eat some barbecue. Let's take a break.
Yes, let's go eat some barbecue.
So they stopped for dinner. They went there's some barbecue joint in LA, and they all went and hung out and came back. They pressed record, and that's the track you hear on the radio. It was the first take when they got back. Said they just had to get out of their heads.
Just had to walk away from it.
Had to walk away from it, and that's the way it is. And I tell you, if you listen to that song and really listen to the drum track, it is a blueprint of the way to play any song on a drum kit. It's perfect.
Yeah. He was such a, and you know, I've heard stories too where Porcaro would be in a session and it just wasn't clicking for him, and he would say, "Hey, I'm not the right guy for this," and he would say, "Let me call, you know, Pauline. I think he can do this better." And Pauline would come in and they'll lay it down, and you know, yeah, sure. I mean, he's done that. I understand many times. So that's awesome when you know. The song is, you're not the guy for the song, and it's very selfless. You know,
and it's incredible. The other thing I'll say about Porcaro's playing, as we were talking about James Taylor earlier, I mean, in that era where basically the tone was kind of being removed from all drum sounds that were being recorded. Everything
overcompressed,
and there was no ring.
Yeah.
He always had his sound.
Oh yeah. You could, you knew he was playing.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I mean, you know, if the ghost notes didn't give it away.
Yeah, exactly.
He was the best ghost noter I think out there.
I agree.
Along with Bernard Purdy. Let's don't leave him out.
Yeah, let's not leave Purdy out. He's pretty good.
There would have been no Rosanna without Purdy.
I agree.
It's basically a variation on the Purdy shuffle there.
That's right. That's exactly right. So along the way, you and I started hanging out, listening to music together, and started playing together a little bit, and then started playing together a lot. And I think for me, it was like the first time I've had the experience of recording, even if it was like in our house.
Yeah.
You know,
4-track Tascam cassette recorder.
That's exactly right.
We stretched that thing to the limits.
The days of the Tascam little recording. It's amazing how that technology has come in a pretty short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for I think for what I paid for that thing, you know, you can get a pretty nice, you know, unit, probably, you know, 4 or 6 mic pre's that are way better than that ever sounded, and you know, grab Reaper or something like that, pretty cheap. Although I've gravitated, I've had as far as on the computer, I was using Mac for a while and using Logic, and then ended up getting Pro Tools, and there's just, I mean, it's the industry standard. There's so many things about Pro Tools that I just don't like. And when when they really enhanced, I'll say, it's not perfected, but when they enhanced Studio One, I embraced that because I was doing a lot of MIDI stuff, you know, with virtual instruments and things like that. And the way it handles virtual instruments is so much better than anything else. And that's where I'm at now. But I can grab that subscription, $16 a month, whatever it is. So it's really cheap now and those are relative terms. I mean, I think a $400 microphone's cheap. Now a lot of people may not, but
right,
you know, if you can find a good quality $400 mic like the one I'm on now, you know, that's good.
Yeah. You know, I keep hearing more and more about Studio One, and that more and more people are using it. My friend Shannon Wickline lives in Virginia, and he does a ton of recording, and that's what he's using now too. And loves it. And
love it.
Same thing. He does a lot of virtual instruments. He's playing all sorts of sounds. Yep. He's kind of a one-man show, doing a lot of drums and bass, and he's even doing steel guitar now on keyboard.
Nice.
And it sounds really, really
I've
good.
heard some of those virtual instruments. They sound really good.
And
for that, and they have, you know, it's got I don't turn this into a Persona's pitch, but it's kind of a one-stop shop. So you got the recording part, the tracking part of it. Then you can import your master over into the, they call it the project page, but that's basically where you would master your, like once you bounce down to 2-track, you know, you would master the 2-track there. And then they have a show page. There's a lot like, functions a lot like Ableton. So it's all in, you know, you can record your song, you can move it over into the show page to do live stuff with, and never leave the software.
And just run it like stems or whatever.
Yep, exactly.
Wow, that's really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, what a cool way for people that may record. Yeah, maybe you're a solo player and you do some backing tracks.
And they interface into SoundCloud, so you know, after you master your 2-track, if you want to go ahead and upload it to SoundCloud, and now they have a interface that just the new release just come out, and I can't remember the name of the distribution site, but can interface with that, and I think their subscriptions of I don't know, less than $20 a month, where they will distribute it to Spotify and iTunes and all the streaming
Wow.
channels or whatever.
Man, that is awesome.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah, I'm gonna need to
one-stop
check
shop.
that out.
I like it a lot.
I use Logic as well, mostly if I'm doing record, like if I'm, someone sends me a track, if I'm going to record something on it, bass or drums or something, I would usually use Logic. But for the podcast, I use Adobe Audition, which back in the day was Cool Edit Pro. I don't know if you remember Cool Edit.
I worked with both of them,
And
Audition and Cool Edit.
yeah, I just love it.
We used them all at some point, I can tell you.
Yeah, exactly. I just love the interface, and it's easy to use. And
Yeah. There was one. I don't know if you ever tried Harrison. You familiar with their consoles?
I'm familiar with the consoles. I've never used one.
So they had a DAW it functioned very much like an analog console. As far as the way you do sends and things like that. And it sounded really good. It was good. It was really good, but it was difficult with the virtual instruments to set up, and that's what I was using before I switched over to Personas. But then that's been bought out by SSL, so they're kind of in on that, and it's evolved a little bit. I haven't messed with it or anything since SSL took it. They actually own Harrison. I guess they own the production of the Harrison consoles now.
Wow,
that's the dream board, right?
The dream, yeah. I mean, and just the endless amounts of money that you can spend on all this, outboard gear.
Oh yeah,
it is unbelievable.
It really is. But I mean, I'm no professional, so what I do, what I can do with a computer and a couple of decent mics, that's good. It's good for me.
I'm the same way, and it all comes down to the source, right? If it's a good track,
yeah. Good song, you got good, good playing. Less is more.
That's it. That's exactly it.
I don't even get an amp out anymore. I use Amplitude or actually IK Multimedia's got this new Tonex thing out, which is very similar to Kemper that does profiles. It sounds amazing. I mean, I don't know how to use it live, but on a recording, it's it's a lot easier than hauling an amp out and miking that up. And I got a nice 73 twin, but can't really crank it up in the house without rattling the windows. So,
and you certainly don't want to be carrying that thing out anywhere.
No, it's got the big EV speakers in it too. They're the SRO EV SROs, and they call them the coffee cans because that's what they look like in the back. And it actually sticks out of the back of the amp. The speaker does just a bit, So they're so much heavier than like a Jensen or anything like that. Sound amazing. This amp was ordered to be a steel guitar amp, so you can imagine how loud that is.
Yep.
You ever know a steel player that didn't just crank it wide open?
No,
not many.
And I'm hoping all my buddies that play steel guitar that may be listening to this know that I love them, but it tends to be a little loud.
But it's okay because I love steel guitar. I want to hear it.
Yeah, that's it.
I miss it. I miss it in country music every day.
I love it too, and
I don't miss it so much because I don't listen to any of the country music that doesn't have it.
That's it. Yeah, because if it's not in it, then it's not country music.
That's right. It is not. It absolutely is not.
Yeah,
it's pop music with a different rapper.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I feel very lucky to have gotten to play with a lot of good steel players over the years, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful instrument.
It is, and in the right hands, just amazing. In the wrong hands,
yeah.
But we know the same people, so we know a lot of good ones.
Yeah,
our buddy Tim Hamilton, he's amazing. He's really good.
He's so good. Yeah. I got to play many years with Tommy Dodd, which I know you know.
Another great one. Did a lot of studio work up in Mark V, South Carolina, there in Greenville. Studio I first cut my teeth in.
Did Tommy play on any of that stuff that you?
He did not. I'm trying to think who did. Can't remember. Bobby All played guitar on a lot of that stuff. There's a guy that was just incredible, Southern gospel and country, and then Russ Malden was on drums on most of that stuff. If I would, he was like some of the early stuff when I was just 10 years old, and they would let me play a song or two. He was the section guy on that, and otherwise with Liberty, our early stuff we did there. And I was the session drummer there for that stuff. I'm trying to remember if we even had a steel player, or maybe they come in and dubbed it later.
Yeah.
Tim played on some of that stuff back then. And then Bobby All was always there. Somebody we insisted on having. Just so his rhythm was phenomenal. But I mean, then his lead stuff good too, and he could play. He could do lead electric. Just phenomenal. But he could throw some really tasty lead acoustic in that was not really bluegrass, but just a hint. But he was able to put that into whatever the music called for.
Yeah.
And he was just one of the most tasty players that I've ever worked.
They were cranking out so many records up there.
Yeah.
At that time. In
Nashville,
that area.
Nashville East, or Little Nashville. That's what they call it, Little Nashville.
Little Nashville.
Yeah,
and
his players were just as good, and it just wasn't it wasn't Nashville, so it didn't have a studio on every corner.
Yeah. I mean, I think about, as we did go back to what we were talking about earlier with Toto, now Shannon Forrest, who's now playing drums, he's touring with Toto right now. I mean, that's where he cut his teeth. I think his dad had a studio there, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll tell you his dad's name in a second.
Was it Otis?
Otis Forrest, yeah. He probably played piano on some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty sure he did.
Yeah, I remember Tommy talking to me about him, about Otis and knowing Shannon when he was young.
Yeah, it was
playing up there.
Yeah, I don't remember meeting Shannon back in the day. I don't think he was probably around, but I certainly heard of him later.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting too for me is that I think there's some studios in Georgia that have a lot of players, and my buddy, I think he may have played on a project for your family group. There's a guy named George Sandler.
Yeah, I think he did down in Whitesburg, Lamp Studios. I think he played some stuff there. Yeah.
George and I met years later, early 2000s, and I've literally I probably played over 1,000 gigs with him over the years.
And it's crazy. I don't think I've ever met him. I don't think I was in on those sessions or anything. I didn't go down for it. But he's phenomenal. Just the stuff that I know he's played on and have heard. And like I said, crazy enough, I don't think I've ever met him.
Yeah. He's a great drummer and just knows, I always tell everyone, he just knows two things about him. Any song that I've ever sung that he's played on, he always remembers the tempo that I like to sing it at, and he always plays it at the right speed.
That's awesome, yeah.
And two, he's notorious for bringing a ton of snare drums to the session and just always had the perfect sounding drum for the song.
Yeah.
It just was the right vibe, right tone.
That's something that, and especially if, in cookie cutter type studios where you go in, you got 8 hours or 4 hours usually. It's like a 4 or 6 hour session, whatever. But you go in, whip out 10 tracks in 4 hours, and you get the one snare drum. But if you got some time, you got a drummer who's got a good collection like that. It's almost like a different paintbrush on the canvas. It just hey, we need a broad stroke here, or we need a pencil thin one over here, and they got a drum for it. That's awesome.
Well, and I would argue, I would say that if your song has drums on it, the sound of your snare drum can define the sound of that tune.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because it sits right there in the middle of the frequency range of basically everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad does a lot of recordings, in Nashville, and we talked about earlier, and I'll mix those. We'll do his vocals here, and I'll mix those. So I've got, I've had the privilege of mixing a lot of incredible players. So for him, but and my brother, I was telling my brother had done that last album with Croon on it, and there are some songs where you think you got these big name players and stuff, and they're probably we certainly know what they're capable of, but I know there's so many tracks on the album with Croon, and I've mixed a couple with him on it, where I don't even import the toms into my session because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Never
Kick,
touches them.
snare, hat, maybe a few
so
cymbals.
In that case, the snare absolutely does define the song.
Yeah, it absolutely does. That's incredible.
And a good kick.
Yeah.
That's a tough one there. It's hard to get a good kick sound if it wasn't recorded well.
Yeah. So, that's very true.
Yeah, you can always tell the engineer's level experience by how good the kick sounds without anything on it.
That's it. That's exactly
if
it.
all you got to do is, throw a little compression and EQ on it.
Yeah.
Then that's good.
There's just, we want to talk about just kick drum alone, bass drum alone, recording that instrument. There are so many factors to think about.
Yeah, there are.
The shell, the head, both heads, the front head and the batter head,
yep.
the muffling, the pedal, the beater choice, the microphone placement, how many microphones to use.
Yeah.
I mean,
whether you're using a sub or not.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like there are so many factors, and one of those can turn
Screw
it
the
into,
whole thing up.
it can screw the whole thing up. That's exactly
A
right.
squeaky pedal will mess up a whole session.
Whole session. Yeah.
That's why I always love the two things, two pedals. The DW, sprocket chain drive pedals are good, but the Ludwig Speed King, as long as you kept it oiled, that thing was silent.
Yeah.
I mean, it could get squeaky. You have to make sure you keep it, well oiled. But that I still love that pedal. I know there's a lot better technology and stuff, but it's called the Speed King for a reason.
Yeah. I heard someone say one time, and I don't remember where I heard it, but I totally ripped it off and started using it when I was teaching. But I heard someone say that when you're playing a drum kit, you need to think of each of your limbs as a fader.
Yeah, that's good.
And you need to
like that.
mix yourself while you play like you would be adjusting the faders on a console.
Yeah.
And that is such a great way to think about
It is.
how to play.
It's hard to create dynamics in a mix when the player's just giving it all they got.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So yeah, a good drummer that knows that and understands dynamics and the dynamics of the song and when to drive it and when to lay back. You can't put a price on that.
No, you can't.
That's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. So before we go, what are you doing? Are you doing much with music these days? I know you're mixing some stuff.
Yeah, doing all and recording, just my own stuff. Actually, well, I have to say my own stuff. I just did some demos a couple nights ago for a local guy here. Had some songs that he'd written, gospel stuff, and he wanted to get them recorded, and so he could copyright them and everything. They're really good songs, actually. He's a good writer, and he come in with this is the way I like to work now. I'm lazy, so he come in with his acoustic guitar. We recorded his acoustic and vocal at the same time with a click track, which he was pretty much dead on, which is nice. And then I went back with the tune track stuff and added bass drums and some piano, and did I can generate that. If you got a good solid track that you recorded to a click, I can generate that stuff in like 10 minutes.
Oh, that's great.
So, yeah, that stuff's amazing. You can drag the audio. Like I could drag the guitar track into Easy Keys, which is the piano software, and it will analyze the audio, pull the chords out, and put those on the timeline, and then drag your MIDI in there. You just find something that fits the song. And then the cool thing with the bass and the drums is you can drag an audio, like I could drag his guitar track into the drums, and it'll create on the fly. It'll create a drum track that fits that rhythm exactly. Then you can drag that into Easy Bass, and it creates a bass track that matches the drums. It's got double kick here and a single kick there. It'll map all that stuff out.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy, and I mean you can whip up a song in no time like that.
The thing I've been using lately is a service called eMaster, and that's what I've been doing with these when I export the podcast. But I've done a few songs as well. Is that it uses AI, and it was software algorithm built by mastering engineers, and basically you drop your track in it and it analyzes it. It will let you go in and sweeten up what you want with the compression or the EQ. Nice. You can even upload a reference track to say I want you to reference it against this, and it will master your track right there within.
Yeah, I know. I have to look into that. What's it called again?
eMaster.
eMaster.
You need to check it out.
Did Waves put that out? They put something else similar to that.
It's not that one.
Okay.
But I know Wavelab does it too. But
I used to use the Wavelabs to master on. That was good.
It does it all through a web interface. So you just upload the track and then you download it, and it's quite remarkable the A/B differences between.
That's gonna put us out of business one day.
And it doesn't over compress everything and just limit the heck out of it.
Yeah.
But like it still has some dynamic range to it, which is really cool. I mean, I just think back to when we're talking about recording these records back in the 80s and 90s, the whole mixing process, and then you'd have to send it off somewhere else to have it mastered.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's sad that technology is probably replacing a lot of people's jobs, but at the same time, it makes life a heck of a lot easier for folks like us.
Makes it a lot more cost efficient for broke musicians like us.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. No, that is exactly it.
Yeah.
So
I messing around with some tracks around Christmas time. I always want to do Christmas stuff, which is the wrong time of year to do it if you want to put it out. But just messing around with all the tune track stuff because I don't know enough about theory to write all these jazz chords out that I hear in my head that I'd like to get out. But the cool thing about the new Easy Keys too is you can literally drag in, like if let's say you got a song like Hark the Herald Angels Sing or whatever, and you just put in the basic chords, the 1 4 5, 3 6 minor or whatever here and there, and it doesn't have to be any kind of split or major sevens or nothing like that. Then they have a list of genres that you just you hit the tab and pull it down to jazz, right? If you want jazz chords in there, and it'll reanalyze all that, and then it'll give you for each chord change, you get about 6 options that you can choose different chords that fit the song that are in that like the jazz genre. So you start with a 1 and you pick maybe this. For ease, we'll say the song's in C and you want to, like a C major 7. Well, it will adjust the next. If say the next chord's a 4 in the progression, it'll match maybe like 5 or 6 different choices for what you could put in there for the 4 chord that are jazz related, and you just go on down the line like that. And pretty soon you've got a jazz arrangement that I could never come up with. But I can play the guitar along with it.
Yeah,
I'm not that good a keyboard player, but I can generate a bass, and drum track that'll perfectly fit that, and then put my guitar in there, and everybody thinks I'm a genius. Really, it's just 20 years worth of software, working.
That's awesome.
No, my wife just said not everybody. She knows the fake behind the facade.
Yeah, it's always nice to have.
By facade, I meant facade. Hope you picked that up.
Yes, I did. It's always good to have someone in your life that keeps it real for
Keeps
you.
You grounded.
I'm glad to know that your wife has taken on that job just like mine has. She's,
absolutely.
She keeps me from taking myself too seriously.
Yeah, right. I think her job is to keep me serious enough.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, I always tell Lisa, tell everyone that Lisa is. She's very good at protecting me from myself.
Right. That's good. That's good. Everybody needs that somebody.
That's exactly right. Well, Tim Sweatman, I've kept you long enough, buddy boy.
I've enjoyed it.
We're going to call this part 1 because I think the next time we need to bring a list. I've been thinking about it. We need to bring a list of like 5 desert island albums each.
Oh, yeah, and just tear them apart.
And let's just talk about them.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the ones that have meant the most to us. And there's probably going to be some overlap, but the Joe's Garage stuff.
That was big, influential. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff that I owe it to you for saying, hey, you need to go check this out. Have you heard this?
And likewise, yeah.
It's I owe a lot of my listening tastes and playing to what you've that seed you planted years ago when we would hang out.
And likewise, for sure. I mean, I would have never heard of Bare Naked Ladies, probably. Well, I guess eventually I would have, but not in their glory years, right?
Yeah, not when they were. They were at that point. They were really, really something special.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, it was amazing. So, take care of yourself.
Yep, you
and
too.
I can't wait to hear some stuff coming out of that studio. That's some really
maybe
cool
one
stuff
day we'll get it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, thank you, buddy. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
Thanks for listening to the Bandwich Tapes. I'm your host, Brad Williams. The show's theme is called Playcation and was written by Mark Mundy. Drop me a line at the email address, thebandwichtapes@gmail.com. Make sure to subscribe to receive new episodes of the podcast. And while you're at it, please tell someone else about the show. Thanks for listening.